Hey everyone, welcome back to Big Outdoors. If you're new around here, my name is Sheldon Marion, and today we're out here at Hudson Hope. We're checking out the old Trapper's Cabin. The Trapper's Cabin site is a very easy to find and accessible site. From Hudson Hope, drive northwest on Canyon Drive for 16 kilometers to the recreation site on the side of the highway near the WAC Bennett Dam. So after a short little drive from Hudson Hope, you get to this nice little pull out here. There's a ton of parking here. There's even a nice little garbage can. You have just a short little walk down this trail here to get down to the cabin. And it's just beautiful little scenery here. And within a couple of steps, you can already see the cabin here. So after about I don't know, 30-yard hike or whatever, you're here at the old Trapper's Cabin. Now this, I don't know the history behind it. I don't know how long it's been here for, but it sure is a pretty cool place. Right here beside it, kind of drops down to a little bit of a swampy lake kind of a thing. Then on the inside here, sure is neat. You can see where the old chimney used to be right there. This would have been one heck of a cozy cabin back in the day. Then they got a hole in the floor there, and usually what that is back in the day that'd be kind of like your fridge. So underneath the cabin, you wouldn't have much space, but there usually what you do is you kind of line it with boards. And then it keeps it nice and cool because you're not quite in the frost line, but it's a lot cooler than just being set out in the corner or whatever. So if you have things like some eggs or, you know, anything needs to be kind of somewhat kept cool, you store it into your floor. One thing that's crazy with a lot of these things is that for the most part, none of them were built with any kind of power tools or anything like that. You can even see here in the logs, you can see where you might have used a handsaw on some of these, but a lot looks like they just used an axe. A lot of this kind of rough cut stuff, what you end up doing is you take a handsaw and you just cut down like little slivers. So your cuts will be up like this, and then you come in with a hammer, you knock that all away, and you bring in a chisel or an axe, and you kind of rough this in here so it'll fit. And of course you're not gonna get it completely perfect, but you're gonna get it close enough. And then you come in afterwards with your chinking, which back in the day would have been moss and grass, mainly moss. Shove that in there, mix that in with a little bit of mud and all that stuff, and you got it insulated. The only thing is, when you're doing that, a lot of the times you got to fill in across the entire thing. So what you end up doing is you run your draw knife on the top of the first log and on the bottom of your second log, and that way they sit fairly flush. But this guy, he didn't do that. Instead, he took little pine trees, cut them out to fit, and just kind of hammered them in there, and they put his moss in afterwards. But kind of shows you there's more than one way to build these things. And here you can really see where his axe marks were here. So it's pretty neat being able to come into a place like this and just kind of put your hands where the old trapper had his hands. And even on this log here, you can see his draw knife marks. So every little flat spot like that, he had his draw knife, which is just a single bevel blade with two handles, and you draw it down the log. And it's usually to pull off all of your all your bark and stuff, but it also works to kind of level it out. And then here you can see where he took all these small little trees and just hammered these ones in. What these ones would have been used for though was after you put your chinking in, like all your moss and stuff, you would have taken these ones and hammered them in just to hold your chinking in place. So in that way they don't kind of dry up, crumble, and fall out.
It's crazy how good a condition this thing's still in.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
It's nice. One thing that you'll notice too with a lot of like older cabins is that it's much more easy to dig down than it is to build up. So on this side of the cabin you can see there's what, 4 maybe 5 logs. Then on the other side there's quite a few more, because what you would have done, you would have found a spot that was kind of relatively flat and then just kind of dug it out in here and then kind of dig it out until it's flat and then build up from there. You know, these logs, you know, even if there's 2 people, for the most part you're kind of on your own by yourself when you're building these out in the bush. You know, the logs are not light, and you would have had to, I don't know, most likely what you would have done is right in here there's probably trees growing up just right here. You probably would have felled the trees down, limbed them all, pulled all the bark off, and then rolled them into place right here, so in that way you're not having to drag them for miles and miles. Except I have seen some places where there's a lot of poplar trees, and the cabin was built out of pine and spruce, and those logs were definitely dragged in from somewhere else. Not very often do you see a log house built out of poplar. They don't hold up nearly as good as spruce and pine does. But here you can see it was mainly spruce that he used, and yeah, the fact that it's still standing today kind of shows you just what kind of workmanship went into this. So it's pretty neat. So one thing too, when you're building like your doors and stuff, you see here where he came in with this saw, he would have cut that out, probably chisel it away with his axe. And then typically what you do is you grab a log and you stand it up straight, and you basically rip the saw, which means you cut down with the grain of the wood with a handsaw. And then you would have had flat boards here that would have been nailed into place coming across here, so you have a nice solid piece for your door. And then you basically would have done the same thing for the planks for your door too, but it looks like this door is kind of, I wouldn't want to call it modern, but more modern than when this thing was first built anyways. And you do the same thing with your windowsills. You rip a saw a few times, get some slabs, put it in so you have a nice little frame, and then you would have put your window in. And all of this stuff too, you gotta think when they built all this stuff, you didn't drive to the site. You either walked in, snowshoed in, you sled dogs or horses. So everything that came into this site would have been on horseback and pretty well in your backpack, in your bags, or in your saddlebags, kind of a thing. And then also up front, there's all these stones here that were kind of put in place. And even today they're still fairly flat. So again, were these kind of just naturally here, or were they just kind of part of a big chunk of shale that's right close? Hopefully they were right close, because like even this big one, I wouldn't move that even with my pickup. But I mean, if you're gonna be a trapper living out in the woods, you want to have your cabin feel like a home, kind of a thing. So little things like that would have went a long ways. But you definitely tell that they did some upgrades. Like there's actual 2x6s as your runners for your roof. You put tar paper underneath, shingles, and then these slabs, 2x12s. Well, kind of 2x12s. They're all rough cut lumber, just slabs of rough cut lumber. A lot of times back in the day, you'd have your log runners going up, or I guess your log rafters going up, and then your runners coming this way, and then pretty well big sheets of moss on top. But yeah, it's something else to see. And like I said, you know, for me, because I've spent a lot of time in the woods, I spent a lot of time in cabins, I've built cabins, and just coming here and just, you know, just kind of like touching this, looking at all these little nicks where the old moss is still sitting, you know, it's, to me, it's a pretty special thing. A lot of people just kind of see this as just some kind of junky cabin in the woods, but for me, I see it as you know, an old trapper's home. So it's really neat for me to see. I thoroughly enjoy finding stuff like this, and seeing how it's right along the highway. Anybody can stop in here and check it out. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and when it comes down to like actually even just starting building this, when you pick out these trees, you don't just go willy-nilly and cut down any old tree. Usually what happens is you find out the length of your cabin. Say this one's, what, 20 feet? So you end up getting basically like a 25 to 30 foot pole, and you basically build yourself like a jig almost. So in that way you reach up to the very top of a tree that's nice and straight, very few limbs, and you have to make sure that the base of the tree is roughly the same as the top. Like this tree here, this one might work, because you can see at the bottom it's whatever, 18 inches. If you look up there about 20 feet, 30 feet or so, it's still right around 12 inches. So it is slightly a bit off, but that one would work. And it's nice and straight. The only problem is you have all those limbs to deal with. And then you have other trees where at the base they're really big, but as they go up they taper real quick, so then you can't use them. So for every one of these logs that are in this cabin, you basically had to sort through about 20 to find one. So you have to find the exact tree that's suitable for it. And then, of course, by then, you might be a mile away. It might be right outside the front door, or you might be, whatever, a couple miles. But every single tree has to be very, very, very selectively cut. Otherwise, you have huge gaps. It sits oblong and not quite right. You can kind of stagger them, where the base of your bottom tree will be here, the top will be over there, then the next one, the base will be here, and then the tops will be over there. Then that way it kind of goes down like this, and you slowly bring it up so it's nice and flat by the time you get to the top, or flat-ish. But yeah, a lot of work goes into an old hand-cut cabin like this. Then when we're leaving the cabin here, instead of going up the trail back up to the truck, just down here you can see another little building, and I don't know, it might just be like an outhouse or something like that, but we're gonna walk down here, we're gonna check it out. Yeah, just a little ways down the trail here, just outhouses. You got a men's and a ladies, or in this day and age you got two brown toilets. Use which one you like. But hey, if you're driving around, you're by the Bennett Dam, and you gotta take a leak or a number 2, cruise in here, use the bathroom. You might have to bring your own toilet paper, and then check out the old trapper's cabin while you're in here. Well, you guys, we came here and we seen what we could see. When you're here, you know, there's a nice little spot here You can have a little picnic if you go in there. There's no picnic tables or anything like that that I can see, but it's a nice little spot. Even though you're right beside the highway, it's nice and quiet. I wouldn't want to let your dogs run around and all that, but yeah, you got a really cool old cabin to check out. Run your fingers along the axe marks and stuff, and I don't know, check her out. And yeah, that's about all. We got a little garbage can here, so when you're done, throw your garbage away, don't leave it out, and just pick up after yourself. And yeah, hopefully you guys come here and enjoy this like I have. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down in the bottom, leave us a comment or two, let us know if you came out here and checked it out. Hope to see you on the next one.